All right, so we asked some questions, and some of these questions came in. Let's go with this one, since you were guilty of this one a while ago. Actually, you weren't guilty. I want to clarify that. You could have been guilty. I'm a married woman with a really great guy friend. I have known him for years, and we have mutual respect for each other's relationship. Why shouldn't we be good friends just because he has different genitalia than me? You want to start, or you want me to start?
I'll try to start this one. Like Dan talked about, I think there's different levels of friends, and you need to identify where you're falling on that. Facebook friend, yeah, that's fine. If you are sharing intimate emotions and feelings, if you're going to that deeper level with this person, then yeah, you need to listen to your husband on this, and he's saying it for a reason, because he loves you and he wants to be that friend to you. When you go outside of the marriage with those intimate feelings and emotions, you're verging on emotional adultery. Yeah, and I mean, that's what I would add to that, is that the whole idea of emotional adultery and the whole idea of verbal infidelity, and those relationships usually end up, if you're going to be intimate with somebody, we just define what intimacy is it's a face-to-face thing. It's not necessarily sexual, as is indicated in this question. It's more of a face-to-face conversational thing. That's where intimacy starts, knowing somebody with words. And so Laura has always, in our ministry, you have always, whenever there's been a relationship that you thought maybe was going south, you've always warned me, and you've told me, and by name have told me. And those have always proven to be right. And you've told me that, that's somebody you need to watch out for. Not in a malicious way, but in a godly way. How do I know if I'm being verbally abused in my marriage, and what should I do if I'm married to an abusive man? You want to start that, or you want me to? It's a big one. Oh, that one breaks my heart. I think you need to evaluate whether or not your husband makes you feel exposed, or whether he makes you feel protected, whether he makes you feel lifted up and encouraged, or whether he tears you down. If he's yelling, if he's degrading, if he's manipulating, if he's controlling, then you are verbally abused.
Yeah, abuse is always about control. It's about somebody trying to control you and control your emotions and control what you do. What I would suggest that you do, and whenever I've heard this in our counseling, is I suggest that you, first of all, you set boundaries for somebody who's verbally abusing you, even if it's your husband. You tell, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm not going to take the verbal abuse. But you tell them what the boundary is. You tell them what the abuse is. You actually use an example. You say, you will not say this to me anymore. And you set that boundary. And then when there's cooler heads prevailing, you sit down and you talk. You have that conversation where you say, these are the things that you are saying to me. And that you will be respected. And that the Bible tells us to demand that respect. I think that often Christians are kind of criticized for saying, we're keeping women down, we're chauvinistic. That's not what the Bible preaches at all. The Bible preaches a mutual respect for one another. And if you feel like you're in danger, if you feel like that, because when men, first of all, I could speak to you brothers, you guys are usually probably bigger than your wives. You could probably take them in a fight. And that can be real intimidating for a woman. Imagine, when you've been in a situation where a bigger man than you was going to take you on. That's that whole fight or flight thing. Many of you should have left and you didn't, got beat up. Well, in that relationship, you're the bigger person there. And so you got to realize what the tone of your voice is as well. And if you need help, wives, if you need help, you also get help. Do Matthew 18. Sit down, set the boundaries, tell them you're verbally abusing me and you're abusive. And then define that abuse, set the rules in the house, and if it doesn't change, bring another brother or sister into it who can sit there and mediate for you. And if that doesn't work, bring the church into it, and the church will help counsel you as well. We don't think anybody should be abused on any level. If a married couple is unable to have children, what other ways can they be fruitful together? I sort of answered this in my sermon, I suppose. Children aren't the only way to be fruitful. One of the other ways that you can be fruitful is if you can't have children, which of course is a very intense issue for many of you who want to have children and can't. You can serve others, through that. You can share your story. You can share your struggle. That's another way to be fruitful, is because there's other people who are struggling with the same thing that you're struggling with. And you can involve yourself in the ministry and the calling that God has for you at that time, because although you might not have children at that point in your life, you can still be fruitful. The Bible's very clear, have dominion over the earth as well, fulfill your calling in life. Let's just do one or two more. What do you do when you get yelled at and nothing you say can make it stop? What do you do when I start doing that?
Well, I think if you're involved in a community group at that point, I would hope that you would speak to your community group pastor and that you wouldn't stay in that abuse, that you would seek help.
Yeah. A lot of times what we try to do is when people start yelling, and if your husband or your wife starts yelling, there's nothing you can do to make it stop. That's not the moment to try and make it stop. There are times where I think that maybe you walk out on that conversation and you leave. And you walk out and you wait until there's a cooler time to sit down and to talk. Very similar to what we answered when somebody asked if I am being abused verbally, how you deal with that. And finally, parenting difference can put a severe strain on a marriage, especially when one spouse is more of a friend and the other feels like a single parent often. How do you deal with that? Just free for all, right?
Yeah. I think first you need to make sure your priorities are in order. Like Dan has talked about, it's God, and then spouse, and then children. And what can tend to happen with what's being described here is the children have kind of creeped up into the spouse range. So you need to make sure that you're on the same page with your spouse. That's not handled in front of your children. That's a conversation that happens not in the heat of the moment. The other thing is you need to make sure that your parenting is biblical, both sides. I tend to be more disciplinarian because that's how I was raised. And I need to make sure that I'm not building fences inside of God's fence. God has a law and he has a fence that he built for us. And I need to make sure that my fences aren't creeping in and creeping in and creeping in. I need to make sure that my fences are biblical so that our children don't jump all of the fences. And then
they still jump on those fences.
I would say for the parent who's more lenient, don't address it in front of the children. Address it after the moment is over with the other spouse. There may be some ways that you can encourage and help. Maybe the other spouse is stressed or carrying a heavier load. But that spouse also needs to make sure that their parenting is biblical.
Yeah, we've had a lot of experience with parenting so far. I mean, there's been times where where Laura and I both come from different homes, like she said, and so we have different ideas of how to parent and how to respond to a situation. And where, like for instance, like the other day, one of us was disciplining the kids and the other one thought that it wasn't really appropriate. And so I decided to go ahead and address it right in the middle of the disagreement. That's not something I should ever do again, is it? It's one of those times where you wait, and you wait until a moment where you're in the talking room, as the one person put it, and you can sit down, you can talk with each other about how to parent. And also there's some great books out there to read that maybe we can suggest, and we'll put those up online, that we've read. One of the things that we've seen is when parents both see their children as redemptive opportunities, even in the face of discipline, is taking a look at what the opportunity offers and how we can point our kids even to Jesus. But whenever we've had a disagreement about it, we wait. We try to wait until...
It's very important that the children don't see an opportunity to divide you. You need to be united in front of them.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you, hon. I appreciate it.